I was sitting in my truck outside a McMansion in Scottsdale, Arizona, finishing my coffee when my phone started buzzing with back-to-back notifications from the Sunset Ridge HOA email chain, and I knew immediately that someone was about to make my Tuesday a whole lot more interesting than it needed to be. The subject line read, "Urgent, unlicensed plumbing work creating health hazards in our community." I nearly choked on my coffee. I had been a master plumber for 15 years, owned my own company, Fletcher's Premium Plumbing, and held every certification the state of Arizona required. My curiosity got the better of me, so I opened the email while sitting in that truck, the Arizona sun already beating down even though it was only 9 in the morning. The message was from Brenda Whitmore, the HOA president of Sunset Ridge, the same planned community where I lived with my wife and 2 kids. The email was 3 paragraphs of pure accusatory venom, claiming that someone in the neighborhood had hired an unlicensed plumber who had done substandard work, resulting in water damage, potential mold issues, and violation of community standards. She demanded that the board take immediate action to fine the homeowner and force them to redo all the work with a legitimate professional. I scrolled down to see which neighbor had supposedly committed this cardinal sin, and my blood ran cold when I saw my own address listed, 4782 Desert Bloom Lane. My name, Fletcher Emerson, was right there in bold letters. She was talking about me, about my house, about work that I had done myself on my own property. The really crazy part was the next line. Brenda wrote that she had inspected the work herself during a routine community wellness check and found it to be dangerous and unprofessional. I had never given her permission to enter my property, let alone inspect my plumbing. But what made this absolutely surreal was that I remembered exactly what work she was referring to. Last summer, I had replaced some aging pipes in my garage and added a utility sink. I had pulled all the proper permits, had the work inspected by the county, and everything had passed with flying colors. But here is where it got really interesting. As I sat there reading this absurd email, a memory clicked into place. Last year, around March, I had done a major plumbing job for a difficult client on Seguero Street. The address was 4791 Seguero Street. The client's name was Brenda Whitmore. That job had been a nightmare from start to finish. Brenda had called me in a panic because her master bathroom had a major leak that was flooding into her walk-in closet. I had arrived within 2 hours, diagnosed the problem as corroded pipes that needed complete replacement, and given her a quote. She had hemmed and hawed about the price, tried to negotiate me down by 40%, and finally agreed only after I explained that her homeowner's insurance would likely cover most of it. The job took 3 days. I had to tear out sections of drywall, replace all the supply lines to her bathroom, install new fixtures because the old ones were damaged, and then repair the drywall and paint. It was extensive work, and I had done it perfectly. I always did. That was why Fletcher's Premium Plumbing had a 5-star rating and more business than I could handle. But Brenda had been a nightmare client. She had hovered over me and my guys the entire time, questioning every decision, asking if we really needed to do this or that, and generally making everyone miserable. When I presented her the final bill, she had a meltdown. She claimed I had overcharged her, that I had done unnecessary work, and that she was going to report me to the Better Business Bureau. I had shown her the itemized invoice, the before and after photos, and the building inspector's approval. She had finally paid, but only after her insurance company confirmed that everything was legitimate and covered. I had not heard from her since. Until now, I called my wife, Beatrice, who worked from home as a graphic designer. She picked up on the second ring. "B, did you see the HOA email?" I asked. "The one from Brenda?" "Yeah, I saw it about 10 minutes ago. I was about to call you," Beatrice said, her voice tight with frustration. "She's saying you did illegal plumbing work. That's insane. You're literally a licensed master plumber." "It gets better," I said. "She's talking about the utility sink I installed in our garage last summer, the one that the county inspected and approved. But here's the thing. I'm pretty sure Brenda is the same Brenda Whitmore whose house I completely repiped last year, the one on Sagaro Street." There was a long pause. "The woman who tried to stiff you on the bill. That's the one." "Oh, this is going to be good," Beatrice said, and I could hear the grim satisfaction in her voice. "What are you going to do?" "I'm going to the next HOA meeting and setting this straight," I said. "When is it?" "Thursday night. 7 o'clock at the community center." "Perfect. I'll be there." I spent the next 2 days preparing. I pulled every document related to the work I had done on my own house: the permits, the inspection reports, the photos, the receipts for materials. I also pulled the file for Brenda's house. Every job I did, I documented extensively. It was not just good business practice, but it had saved me more than once when a client got difficult. Brenda's file was thick. I had photos of the damage when I arrived, photos of the corroded pipes I had removed, photos of every stage of the installation, and photos of the final result. I had the signed contract, the itemized invoice, the payment record, and the insurance company's approval letter. I also had the county inspection report showing that all work had passed code. Thursday evening arrived. I drove to the Sunset Ridge Community Center with a folder full of documents and a laptop loaded with photos. Beatrice wanted to come, but someone needed to stay home with the kids. She made me promise to record the whole thing on my phone. The community center was a bland stucco building with a Spanish tile roof, like everything else in Scottsdale. Inside, the meeting room was set up with rows of folding chairs facing a long table where the HOA board sat. There were about 30 people in attendance, which was more than usual. Apparently, the promise of drama had drawn a crowd. Brenda Whitmore sat in the center of the board table. She was in her late 40s, with blonde hair cut in that sharp, angular style that seemed to be a requirement for HOA presidents. She wore a navy blazer over a white blouse and had reading glasses perched on her nose. Next to her was Dale Patterson, the vice president, a retired accountant who mostly just nodded at whatever Brenda said. The other 3 board members were Linda Castillo, Tom Reynolds, and Janet Kim. I knew them all casually from neighborhood events. I took a seat in the 3rd row and waited. Brenda went through the usual opening business: minutes from the last meeting, financial report, upcoming community events. Her voice was crisp and businesslike, the kind of voice that was used to being obeyed. Finally, she got to new business. "As many of you saw in this week's email, we have a serious issue that needs to be addressed," Brenda said, looking out over the crowd. Her eyes landed on me, and her expression hardened. "We have a homeowner in our community who has performed unlicensed plumbing work on his property without proper permits or inspections. This creates liability for the entire community and violates our CC and Articus regarding modifications to properties." Several people turned to look at me. I kept my expression neutral. "The homeowner is Fletcher Emerson of 4782 Desert Bloom Lane," Brenda continued. "Mr. Emerson installed plumbing fixtures in his garage without notifying the Architectural Review Committee or providing proof of licensed work. I personally observed this work during a community inspection and found it to be substandard and potentially dangerous." I raised my hand. Brenda's lips pressed into a thin line, but she nodded at me. "I'd like to address this," I said, standing up. "You'll have a chance during the homeowner comment period," Brenda said. "Actually, since you've made specific accusations against me, I think I have the right to respond immediately," I said, keeping my voice calm and professional. "Unless you want to discuss potential defamation issues." That got her attention. Dale, the vice president, leaned over and whispered something to her. She looked annoyed but nodded. "Fine. You have 5 minutes," Brenda said. I walked to the front of the room and set my laptop on a small table next to the board's table. "First, let me introduce myself to anyone who doesn't know me. My name is Fletcher Emerson. I'm a licensed master plumber in the state of Arizona. I've held that license for 15 years. I own Fletcher's Premium Plumbing, which serves the greater Phoenix area." I pulled out my license and held it up. "Here's my license, current and in good standing. Now, regarding the work on my property, let me be very clear. I pulled a permit from Maricopa County for the installation of a utility sink and associated plumbing in my garage. The work was completed last July. It was inspected by County Inspector Robert Chen on July 22nd, and it passed all code requirements." I opened my laptop and pulled up the digital copy of the inspection report. "Here's the inspection report. I can email this to the board if you'd like." The work was done to code, was properly permitted, and was inspected by the appropriate authority. The room was silent. People were craning their necks to see the screen. Brenda's face had gone pale, but she recovered quickly. "That document could be fabricated," she said. "Feel free to call the county and verify it," I said. "The permit number is right there. But let's talk about your claim that you inspected my property. When exactly did you enter my garage?" "I didn't enter your garage. I observed the work from outside," Brenda said, but her voice had lost some of its confidence. "So you observed plumbing work inside my garage from outside the garage. That's impressive vision," I said, "because the utility sink is against the back wall, which isn't visible from outside. So either you're lying about inspecting the work, or you trespassed on my property." Several people in the audience murmured. Brenda's face was now red. "I have the right as HOA president to inspect properties for code violations." "Actually, you don't," I said. "The CC and Articus allow for exterior inspections of visible areas to ensure compliance with community standards. They don't give you the right to enter someone's garage or home without permission. So which is it? Did you trespass, or are you making accusations about work you never actually saw?" Dale was now flipping through a copy of the CC and Articus, looking increasingly worried. Linda Castillo, one of the other board members, was watching Brenda with a frown. "I think we need to table this discussion," Dale said nervously. "No, I don't think we do," I said. "Because I want to know why Brenda Whitmore is making false accusations about my work, and I think I know the answer." I pulled out the folder with Brenda's file. "Last March, I did extensive plumbing work for a client on Seguero Street. The client had a major leak in her master bathroom. I replaced all the corroded supply lines, installed new fixtures, repaired water damage, and got everything inspected and approved by the county." I held up the before photos of Brenda's bathroom. The images showed water damage, mold, and badly corroded pipes. "This is what I found when I arrived." The client was panicked because water was flooding her closet and ruining her belongings. I completed the work in 3 days. It was a big job and it wasn't cheap, but it was done right. I showed the after photos, which displayed gleaming new pipes and fixtures. "Here's the finished work. County approved, insurance company approved, but the client wasn't happy about the cost. She tried to claim I had overcharged her and done unnecessary work. She threatened to report me to various agencies. She only paid after her insurance company confirmed everything was legitimate. I looked directly at Brenda. That client was Brenda Whitmore, same address that's listed in the HOA directory for our board president. The room erupted. People were turning to stare at Brenda, talking among themselves. Brenda had gone very still, her face a mask of fury and embarrassment. "Are you suggesting that I'm making false accusations out of some kind of revenge?" Brenda asked, her voice shaking. "I'm not suggesting anything. I'm stating facts," I said. "Fact, you hired me for a major plumbing job. Fact, you were unhappy about the cost and threatened me. Fact, 1 year later, you're making false accusations about my work despite having no evidence and possibly trespassing to make those accusations. People can draw their own conclusions." Linda Castillo spoke up. "Brenda, is this true? Did Mr. Emerson do work on your house?" Brenda was silent for a long moment. Then she said, "Yes, but that has nothing to do with this. I saw substandard work in his garage, and as HOA president, it's my duty to report it." "You still haven't explained how you saw work inside a closed garage," Tom Reynolds pointed out. He was a lawyer, and his eyes had that sharp look of someone who smelled blood in the water. "The garage door was open," Brenda said. "Actually, it wasn't," I said. "I keep my garage door closed because I store tools and equipment in there. My wife and I are both home most days, and we can testify that we never gave you permission to enter our property or inspect anything." "This is ridiculous," Brenda snapped. "I'm not going to sit here and be accused of lying by someone who clearly has a grudge against me." "A grudge?" I laughed. "Lady, I did excellent work on your house. I saved your bathroom from complete destruction. You paid me eventually, and I moved on with my life. I didn't think about you again until you decided to make up lies about me in an HOA email blast." Janet Kim, the quietest board member, raised her hand. "I think we need to vote on whether to continue this investigation. If Mr. Emerson has proper permits and inspections, then there's no violation. The HOA doesn't have authority to override county building codes." "I second that," Tom Reynolds said immediately. Dale looked relieved. "All in favor of dropping this matter?" Linda, Tom, and Janet all raised their hands. Dale hesitated, glanced at Brenda's furious face, and then slowly raised his hand too. "Motion carries," Dale said. "The complaint against Mr. Emerson is dismissed." Brenda stood up abruptly, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. "This is unacceptable. I'm the president of this board, and I'm telling you there's a violation." "And we're telling you there isn't," Tom said. "Brenda, I think you need to recuse yourself from any future matters involving Mr. Emerson. There's clearly a conflict of interest here." "There's no conflict," Brenda insisted. "You hired him for work, had a dispute about payment, and now you're making accusations about his work a year later," Linda said. "That's pretty much the definition of conflict of interest." I could see Brenda trying to maintain control, but the meeting had completely slipped away from her. Several people in the audience were now openly talking about the situation, and I heard someone say, "I always thought she was too aggressive." I gathered my materials and started to head back to my seat, but Brenda's voice stopped me. "This isn't over, Mr. Emerson," she said. I turned back. "Actually, it is. The board voted. The matter is closed. If you continue to harass me or make false accusations, I'll have my lawyer send you a cease and desist letter. And if you ever enter my property without permission again, I'll call the police." I left the community center feeling vindicated but also uneasy. I had dealt with difficult clients before, but Brenda had a position of power in the HOA, and I knew from experience that people like her didn't let things go easily. When I got home, Beatrice was waiting up. "How did it go?" I think I won, I said, but Brenda is not happy about it. Good, Beatrice said firmly. She shouldn't make false accusations against people. Over the next week, things seemed to settle down. I didn't hear anything from Brenda or the HOA board. I went back to my regular work, which was busy as always. Phoenix area homes had a lot of plumbing issues due to hard water and the age of many of the properties. Then, 10 days after the meeting, I got a certified letter from the HOA. My stomach sank when I saw it. Certified letters were never good news. I opened it in my truck between jobs. The letter informed me that I was being fined $500 for unauthorized modifications to property exterior visible from common areas. The letter claimed that the vent pipe for my new utility sink extended above my garage roofline and was visible from the street, constituting a modification that required Architectural Review Committee approval. I actually laughed out loud. This was absurd. Vent pipes were a standard part of any plumbing system. They had to extend above the roofline to function properly. Every house in the neighborhood had them. Mine was white PVC, the same as most of the others, and it was positioned on the back slope of the garage roof where it was barely visible from the street. I called Tom Reynolds, the lawyer on the HOA board. He picked up after a few rings. Tom, it's Fletcher Emerson. Did you see the fine letter the HOA sent me? Yeah, I saw it, Tom said. He sounded tired. I voted against it for what it's worth. So did Linda and Janet, but Brenda and Dale pushed it through. How can they push through a fine when 3 board members voted against it? They called an emergency meeting Tuesday night, just the 2 of them. They claimed it was about urgent business that couldn't wait for a full board meeting, Tom said. It's technically within the HOA bylaws, but it's a stretch. Linda's already drafting a motion to void the fine at the next regular meeting. This is harassment, I said. I agree, and I think you should document everything. If Brenda keeps this up, you might have a case for legal action against her personally. I'm not paying this fine, I said. I wouldn't either. Just write a formal dispute letter. I'll make sure it gets on the agenda for the next meeting. I spent the evening drafting a dispute letter. I laid out all the facts. The vent pipe was required by building code. It was inspected and approved by the county. It was identical to vent pipes on dozens of other houses in the neighborhood, and the fine was clearly retaliatory given the history with Brenda. I sent the letter via certified mail to the HOA board and kept a copy for my records. The next HOA meeting was 3 weeks away, which felt like an eternity. In the meantime, I got another letter from the HOA. This one claimed that I had stored trash cans visible from the street on a non-collection day, violating community standards. The fine was $250. I checked my security camera footage. On the day in question, my trash cans had been at the curb for exactly 4 hours before I brought them back to the side of my house. That side yard was fenced and not visible from the street. Someone had to have been watching my house specifically to catch that narrow window. Beatrice was furious. She's stalking us. This is crazy. I know, I said, but we need to stay calm and document everything. People like Brenda eventually overreach and hang themselves. I filed another dispute letter. This time, I included screenshots from my security cameras showing exactly when the trash cans were out and when I brought them back. I also included photos showing that the side yard where I stored the cans was completely screened from the street. 2 weeks later, I got a third fine. This one claimed my lawn had weeds that violated community standards. The fine was $500. I walked my entire front yard. There were a few small weeds near the back edge of the property, the kind that every yard in Arizona had because desert landscaping attracted certain native plants. They were barely noticeable and certainly not a violation of any reasonable standard. I took extensive photos and filed another dispute. But I was also starting to get worried. Brenda was clearly on a campaign to bury me in fines and violations, and even though I was disputing them all, the process was time-consuming and stressful. The night before the next HOA meeting, Tom Reynolds called me. "Fletcher, I wanted to give you a heads up," he said. "Brenda is planning to propose a special assessment against you at tomorrow's meeting. She's claiming you owe the HOA for legal fees related to investigating your violations." "What legal fees?" "There haven't been any legal proceedings," I said. "She's claiming the board had to consult with the HOA's attorney about your case. It's nonsense, but she's going to try to push it through." "Can she do that?" "Not without a full board vote. And I can tell you right now that Linda, Janet, and I will vote no, but she's going to try." The next evening, I arrived at the community center early. The room was more crowded than last time. Word had spread about the ongoing dispute, and people were interested. Some of my neighbors came up to me before the meeting started to express support. One of them, a retired engineer named Marcus Chen, told me he'd had his own run-ins with Brenda and thought she was abusing her authority. When Brenda called the meeting to order, her expression was cold and professional. She went through the standard business quickly, clearly eager to get to the main event. "Under new business, we have several outstanding violations to discuss," Brenda said. She pulled out a thick folder. "Fletcher Emerson has accumulated 3 violations in the past month, with total fines of $1,250. He has disputed all of them, so we need to vote on whether to uphold the fines." Linda Castillo spoke up immediately. "I'd like to discuss each violation separately." "Let's start with the vent pipe. Mr. Emerson, would you like to address this?" I stood up and walked to the front again. This was becoming a routine. "The vent pipe is required by Arizona Building Code. It was inspected and approved by Maricopa County. It's identical to vent pipes on dozens of homes in this neighborhood. Here are photos." I had prepared a PowerPoint presentation this time. I showed photos of my vent pipe and then photos of similar pipes on 15 other houses in Sunset Ridge, including Tom Reynolds' house and Janet Kim's house. "As you can see, my vent pipe is standard and not unusual in any way. The fine is without merit." "I'd like to make a motion to void this fine," Linda said. "Second," Tom said immediately. "All in favor?" Linda asked, pointedly not waiting for Brenda to run the vote. Linda, Tom, and Janet raised their hands. Dale looked at Brenda, who was glaring at Linda, and then reluctantly raised his hand. "Motion carries." "The fine is voided," Linda said. Brenda's jaw was clenched, but she moved on. "The second violation is for trash cans visible from the street on a non-collection day." I pulled up my security camera footage on my laptop. Here's video from that day. The trash cans were at the curb for 4 hours after collection, which is reasonable. They were then moved to my side yard, which is fenced and not visible from the street. Here are photos of the side yard from the street showing that the cans cannot be seen. Janet Kim spoke this time. "This seems excessive. 4 hours is reasonable. Motion to void." "Second," Tom said. Another vote. Same result. The fine was voided. "The third violation is for weeds in the front yard," Brenda said, her voice getting tight. "I took extensive photos of my front yard on the day I received the violation notice," I said. I showed the photos on my laptop. "There are a few small native plants near the back corner of the lot, barely visible from the street. They're not weeds, they're desert plants, and they're not a violation of any reasonable landscaping standard." Meanwhile, I took photos of other yards in the neighborhood. I showed photos of several other properties. including one that had a large patch of dried, dead grass and another that had several overgrown bushes. If we're going to enforce landscaping standards, they need to be enforced equally. But I think we can all see that this fine is targeted harassment. Motion to void, Linda said, not even waiting for discussion. Second. The vote was the same. Brenda looked like she wanted to flip the table. There's one more matter, Brenda said, her voice shaking slightly. The HOA has incurred legal fees related to Mr. Emerson's violations. I'm proposing a special assessment of $2,000 to cover those costs. What legal fees? Tom asked sharply. I'm not aware of any legal consultation regarding this matter. I consulted with our HOA attorney about the vent pipe issue, Brenda said. Did you get board approval for that consultation? Tom asked. Brenda was silent. Because the bylaws require board approval for any legal consultation that will cost the HOA more than $500, Tom continued. If you consulted an attorney without approval, that's on you, not the HOA. And certainly not on Mr. Emerson. I acted in the best interest of the community, Brenda said. You acted unilaterally, which is not how this board operates, Linda said. She looked genuinely angry now. Brenda, this has gone too far. You've wasted hours of board time and community time on a personal vendetta. It needs to stop. It's not a vendetta, Brenda snapped. Mr. Emerson is flouting community standards and needs to be held accountable. For what? Janet Kim asked. For having a properly permitted vent pipe. For taking out his trash. For having a couple of desert plants in his yard. Or for charging you a fair price for plumbing work last year. The room went silent. Janet was normally very quiet and her directness caught everyone off guard. This is inappropriate, Brenda said. What's inappropriate is abusing your position as HOA president to harass a homeowner, Janet said. I'm making a motion to censure Brenda Whitmore for abuse of authority and to remove her as HOA president. This was unprecedented. The room erupted in conversation. Dale looked like he wanted to be anywhere else. Tom and Linda were nodding. Second, Linda said firmly. You can't do this, Brenda said, standing up. I'm doing my job. Your job is to enforce community standards fairly and equally, not to target someone because you had a personal dispute with them, Tom said. All in favor of the censure and removal. Linda, Tom, and Janet raised their hands immediately. Dale hesitated, looking at Brenda. Then he slowly raised his hand. Motion carries, Tom said. Brenda, you're removed as HOA president effective immediately. Linda, as treasurer, you'll assume the president role until we can hold an election. Brenda grabbed her purse and folder and stormed out of the community center. The door slammed behind her. The room was buzzing. Linda looked a bit stunned to suddenly find herself in charge, but she recovered quickly. Okay, let's table any remaining business and reconvene next month, Linda said. And Mr. Emerson, on behalf of the board, I apologize for the harassment you've experienced. All fines against you are formally voided. People came up to me after the meeting to shake my hand and congratulate me. Several neighbors mentioned that they'd had issues with Brenda over the years and were glad to see her removed. I drove home feeling relieved but also a bit hollow. I had won, but the whole thing had been exhausting and unnecessary. Beatrice met me at the door. I saw the group chat. Brenda got voted out. Yeah, I said. It's over. Good. Maybe now we can get back to normal life. For a few weeks, it seemed like things were indeed back to normal. Linda ran the HOA meetings efficiently and fairly. There were no more violation notices. I focused on work and family. Then about a month later, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Is this Fletcher Emerson? A woman's voice asked. Yes, who's this? My name is Karen Vasquez. I'm an attorney representing Brenda Whitmore. Miss Whitmore is filing a lawsuit against you for defamation and intentional infliction of emotional distress. I actually laughed. You're kidding. I'm not. Miss Whitmore claims you made false statements about her at HOA meetings that damaged her reputation and caused her severe emotional distress. She's seeking $50,000 in damages. Everything I said at those meetings was true and documented, I said. I have receipts, photos, emails, and witnesses. That will be for the court to decide. You'll be served with papers in the next few days. I suggest you retain legal counsel. She hung up. I sat in my truck, stunned. This woman was actually suing me. I called Tom Reynolds again. Tom, I need a referral for a good litigation attorney. Brenda is suing me. Of course she is, Tom sighed. Okay, I'll send you some names, but Fletcher, you're going to win this. Everything you said was documented and said in a public meeting as part of defending yourself. That's not defamation. I know, but I still have to deal with it. Tom sent me 3 names. I called the first one, an attorney named David Foster who specialized in defamation and HOA disputes. We met the next day. David was in his 50s, with graying hair and a calm, confident demeanor. I walked him through everything. The original job at Brenda's house, the dispute over payment, the false accusations at the HOA meetings, the retaliatory fines, and finally, my defense and her removal from the board. This is a slap suit, David said. Strategic lawsuit against public participation. She's suing you to punish you for speaking up and defending yourself. Arizona has anti-slap statutes that protect people in situations like this. So I can get it dismissed, very likely, and we can probably get her to pay your attorney fees, but it will take time and some money up front. How much time? Could be a few months, maybe longer if she appeals. I hired David. A few days later, I was served with the lawsuit papers. Reading them made my blood boil. Brenda's complaint painted me as a vengeful, dishonest contractor who had done substandard work on her home and then launched a smear campaign against her when she tried to hold me accountable. It was a complete inversion of reality. David filed a response denying all allegations and a motion to dismiss under Arizona's anti-slap law. We submitted all my documentation, the permits, inspection reports, photos, the HOA meeting minutes, the security camera footage, everything. 2 months later, we had a hearing. I had to take a day off work to sit in a Maricopa County courtroom while lawyers argued about whether Brenda's lawsuit had merit. Brenda was there with her attorney, Karen Vasquez. Brenda wouldn't look at me. She sat rigidly in her chair, staring straight ahead. David argued that everything I had said at the HOA meetings was true, documented, and said in self-defense against false accusations. He showed the judge the permits, inspections, and photos. He played excerpts from the HOA meeting recordings that several neighbors had made. Karen Vasquez argued that I had deliberately humiliated Brenda by bringing up the previous dispute about her plumbing work in a public forum, and that this had caused her severe emotional distress and damage to her reputation. The judge, a woman in her 60s named Sandra Martinez, listened patiently. Then she asked Karen Vasquez a pointed question. Counselor, your client made accusations against Mr. Emerson in an HOA email that went to hundreds of residents, claiming he did unlicensed and substandard work. Those accusations were false. Mr. Emerson had proper licenses, permits, and inspections. When he defended himself by explaining that your client had a previous dispute with him over a plumbing bill, he was providing relevant context for why she might be making false accusations. How is that defamation? Karen Vasquez tried to argue that the previous dispute was irrelevant, but Judge Martinez cut her off. It's directly relevant. It goes to motive and credibility. And Mr. Emerson's statements were true. Truth is an absolute defense to defamation. Judge Martinez looked at the papers in front of her. Furthermore, this appears to be a clear slap suit designed to punish Mr. Emerson for exercising his right to defend himself in a public forum. The motion to dismiss is granted. Miss Whitmore, you will be responsible for Mr. Emerson's attorney fees, which will be determined at a subsequent hearing. Brenda's face went white. Karen Vasquez tried to argue, but the judge was done. This case is dismissed with prejudice. Mr. Emerson, you're free to go. I shook David's hand in the courthouse hallway. Thank you. You're welcome. I'll file for attorney fees. You'll probably recover most of what you've paid me. I don't care about the money, I said. I just wanted this to be over. But it still wasn't quite over. A few weeks later, David called me with news. Fletcher, I got a call from Karen Vasquez. Brenda Whitmore is willing to settle the attorney fees claim. She's offering to pay 75% of your fees. Why would I settle? The judge ordered her to pay all of it. She's appealing the fee award. If we go to a hearing, we'll probably win, but it will take time. The settlement offer would close this out now. I thought about it. I was tired of dealing with this. I wanted to move on with my life. Tell her 80%. And she has to sign an agreement not to pursue any further legal action against me or my family. David negotiated. Brenda agreed to 80% of the fees and a mutual non-disparagement, and no further litigation agreement. I signed it, she signed it, and it was finally, truly over, or so I thought. 3 months later, I was working on a kitchen remodel in Temp when I got a call from Linda Castillo, the current HOA president. Fletcher, I wanted to give you a heads up about something, Linda said. Brenda Whitmore is selling her house and moving out of Sunset Ridge. Good, I said. I hope she finds happiness elsewhere. There's more. Apparently, she's been having issues with her plumbing again. She hired another company to come look at it, and they found that her pipes are failing. My stomach dropped. What do you mean, failing? I don't know the details, but she's claiming that you did bad work when you replaced her pipes, and that's why they're failing now. That's impossible, I said. The work was inspected and approved. Pipes don't fail after just 2 years unless there's a specific problem. I thought you should know in case she tries to come after you again. I thanked Linda and hung up. Then I called David Foster. David, I think Brenda is about to make another move. She's claiming the plumbing work I did on her house 2 years ago is failing. She can't sue you. The agreement we signed prohibits it. I know, but she might try to file a complaint with the state licensing board or something. If she does, we'll deal with it. But Fletcher, you keep excellent records. You'll be fine. 2 weeks later, I got a letter from the Arizona Registrar of Contractors. Brenda had filed a complaint alleging that I had done substandard work on her home that was now causing damage. I called David immediately. We put together a response packet. The original contract, the before and after photos, the inspection reports, the insurance company approval, and a statement from the county inspector who had signed off on the work. But I also wanted to know what was actually going on with Brenda's pipes. I called the plumbing company she had supposedly hired. I knew most of the reputable plumbers in the Phoenix area, and I wanted to find out what they had actually found. The company was Desert Valley Plumbing. I knew the owner, a guy named Mike Torres. I called him. Mike, it's Fletcher Emerson. I heard you did some work for a client of mine, Brenda Whitmore on Seguero Street. Oh man, that job, Mike said. Yeah, we went out there. She said her pipes were leaking and claimed the previous plumber had done bad work. But Fletcher, when we opened up the walls, we found that someone had messed with the pipes. What do you mean, messed with them? The connections were loosened. Not enough to cause an immediate leak, but enough that they would start dripping eventually. It looked deliberate. My blood ran cold. You're saying someone sabotaged the plumbing? That's what it looked like to us. We took photos and documented everything. We tightened the connections and checked the whole system. Everything is fine now. The work itself was good, high quality. Someone just deliberately loosened some fittings. Did you tell Brenda this? Yeah. She seemed upset but also kind of evasive. She paid us and that was it. I thanked Mike and hung up. Then I sat in my truck trying to process what I'd just learned. Brenda had sabotaged her own plumbing to try to build a case against me. That was insane. It was also potentially criminal. I called David Foster and told him what Mike had said. We need those photos and a statement from Mike, David said immediately. If she sabotaged her own property to build a false complaint against you, that's fraud. It might also be filing a false report. I called Mike back and explained the situation. He agreed to provide photos and a written statement about what his crew had found. David submitted everything to the registrar of contractors, along with a formal request that they investigate Brenda for filing a false complaint. We also filed a police report in Scottsdale, alleging that Brenda had attempted to commit fraud by deliberately damaging her property and blaming me. The investigation took months. I had to give statements to the registrar of contractors and to a Scottsdale police detective. Mike Torres and his crew had to give statements too. During this time, Brenda's house sale fell through. Apparently, the inspection had revealed the plumbing issues, and when the buyers learned about the ongoing investigation and the fact that the owner had allegedly sabotaged her own pipes, they backed out. The house sat on the market for months. Finally, about 8 months after the initial complaint, I got a call from David Foster. The registrar of contractors dismissed Brenda's complaint and issued a finding that she filed it in bad faith, David said. They're fining her $5,000. And the Scottsdale police are charging her with filing a false report and attempted fraud. They're actually charging her. Yeah, the prosecutor thinks they have a solid case. Mike's photos and statement, plus the pattern of behavior with the HOA complaints and the lawsuit, show a clear intent to harm you through false accusations. The case went to court 6 months later. I had to testify. I walked the jury through the entire timeline. The original job at Brenda's house, the dispute over payment, the false HOA accusations, the retaliatory fines, the defamation lawsuit, and finally the false complaint to the licensing board. Mike Torres testified about what his crew found when they inspected Brenda's plumbing. He showed the photos of the deliberately loosened connections. The county inspector, who had approved my original work, testified that the installation had been done correctly and to code. Brenda's defense attorney tried to argue that maybe the connections had loosened over time due to vibration or settling, but Mike Torres shut that down. He explained that the pattern of loosening was inconsistent with natural causes. The fittings had been manually turned, just enough to create a slow leak. The jury deliberated for less than 3 hours. They found Brenda guilty of filing a false report and attempted fraud. The judge sentenced her to 1 year of probation, 200 hours of community service, and ordered her to pay restitution to me for my attorney fees and lost work time. The total came to about $30,000. As Brenda was led out of the courtroom, she finally looked at me. Her expression was pure hatred. Outside the courthouse, David clapped me on the shoulder. "It's over, finally." "I hope so," I said. "She's on probation. If she comes near you or tries anything else, she goes to jail. She knows that it's over." And it was. Brenda sold her house a few months later at a significant loss. I heard she moved to Tucson. I never saw her again. Life went back to normal. I ran my plumbing business, spent time with Beatrice and the kids, and attended HOA meetings when necessary. Linda Castillo ran the board fairly and efficiently, and there were no more dramatic confrontations. But the whole experience changed me. I became more careful about documenting everything, not just for my business but in my personal life too. I installed more security cameras around my property. I kept meticulous records of every interaction with the HOA. Some people thought I was paranoid, but I had learned the hard way that people in positions of power, even small power like an HOA board, could abuse that authority if they had a grudge. And I had learned that the best defense was thorough documentation and a willingness to stand up for yourself, even when it was uncomfortable. A year after Brenda's conviction, I was at a neighborhood barbecue when Marcus Chen, the retired engineer, came up to me with a beer. "You know, Fletcher, you did the whole neighborhood a favor," Marcus said. "How's that?" Brenda was a tyrant. She made people's lives miserable with petty complaints and overreach. You stood up to her and it forced the board to reform. Linda's been great, but more than that, people are paying attention now. They're engaged. They're not letting anyone accumulate that kind of power again. "I didn't do it for the neighborhood," I said. "I just didn't want to be treated unfairly, I know, but the result is the same. Sometimes standing up for yourself ends up helping everyone." I thought about that. Maybe Marcus was right. Or maybe I had just been lucky that things worked out. But either way, I was grateful it was over. Beatrice joined us, carrying our youngest daughter on her hip. "What are you two talking about?" "Ancient history," I said, kissing her cheek. "And how much better things are now." "Good," Beatrice said, "because I am done with HOA drama. From now on, the most exciting thing I want to happen at an HOA meeting is a debate about what color to paint the community center." "I'll drink to that," Marcus said, raising his beer. We clinked bottles, and I looked around at my neighbors, people I genuinely liked and respected. This was what a community should be. People looking out for each other, not tearing each other down. It had taken a long, exhausting fight to get here, but it was worth it. As the sun set over Scottsdale, turning the sky brilliant shades of orange and pink, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't felt in almost 2 years. The nightmare was over. Life was good. And I never wanted to see another Karen Brenda in my life again. But I knew that if I ever did encounter another person who tried to abuse their authority and target innocent people, I would stand up to them just like I had stood up to Brenda. Because that's what you do. You document everything, you stay calm, you stick to the facts, and you don't let anyone push you around just because they have a title or a position. The plumbing business continued to thrive. Word had actually spread about the situation with Brenda, and surprisingly, it brought me more business. People respected that I had stood my ground and proven my integrity. Several new clients specifically mentioned that they had heard about the case and wanted to hire someone they could trust. One day, about 18 months after everything ended, I got a call from a woman in Paradise Valley who needed extensive plumbing work on a historic home. The job was massive and would be very profitable. When I arrived to do the estimate, the homeowner, an elegant woman in her 60s named Patricia Gordon, greeted me warmly. "Mr. Emerson, thank you for coming. I've heard wonderful things about your work." "Thank you, Mrs. Gordon. I understand you need some significant plumbing updates." "Yes, the house is beautiful, but the plumbing is original to 1965. It's time for a complete overhaul." She paused. "I also heard about your situation with that HOA president. My daughter lives in Sunset Ridge. She said you handled the whole thing with incredible professionalism." "I just defended myself with facts and documentation," I said. "Exactly. And that's why I called you. I need someone who is not only skilled but also honest and professional. Someone who will do the job right and stand behind their work. That job led to referrals to 3 of Patricia's wealthy neighbors in Paradise Valley. Within 6 months, I had more high-end residential work than I could handle. I had to hire 2 more plumbers to keep up with demand. Meanwhile, the Sunset Ridge HOA continued to improve under Linda's leadership. She established clear guidelines for how violations would be handled, created a transparent appeals process, and made sure the board couldn't take any major actions without a full vote. The community became a better place to live. Tom Reynolds stayed on the board for another year before stepping down to spend more time with his grandchildren. Janet Kim became the new vice president. Dale Patterson, who had always been weak and easily influenced, resigned from the board entirely. People respected that he at least recognized his own failings. A new family moved into Brenda's old house. They were a young couple with a toddler, friendly and easygoing. I introduced myself and told them I was a plumber if they ever needed anything. They mentioned that the house had recently had all new plumbing work done, which made me smile. At least that system was solid now. Life settled into a comfortable rhythm. Work was good, family was good, and the neighborhood was peaceful. Every now and then someone would bring up the situation with Brenda at a social gathering, usually to thank me again for standing up to her. But mostly people moved on. That's the thing about drama. It feels all-consuming when you're in the middle of it, but eventually it fades and life goes back to normal. One evening, about 2 years after the whole ordeal ended, I was sitting on my back patio with Beatrice, watching the kids play in the pool. The Arizona sunset was spectacular, painting the sky in brilliant colors. "You know what I realized today?" Beatrice said. "What's that?" "I haven't thought about Brenda Whitmore in months. It used to consume so much of our mental energy and now it's just gone, like it never happened." "It happened," I said, "but we got through it and we're stronger for it. Are we? Or are we just paranoid now?" Beatrice gestured at the security cameras positioned around our property. "A little bit of both, maybe," I admitted, "but I'd rather be prepared than caught off guard again." "Fair enough." Beatrice leaned her head on my shoulder. "I'm proud of you, you know, for how you handled everything. You never lost your temper, never stooped to her level. You just presented facts and let the truth speak for itself." "I had a lot of motivation," I said, putting my arm around her. "I wasn't just defending myself. I was defending our family and our home." "Well, you did good, really good." We sat there in comfortable silence, watching the sunset and listening to our kids laugh and splash in the pool. This was what mattered: family, home, peace. Everything else was just noise. The next morning I had a job in Mesa, a straightforward water heater replacement. As I was finishing up, the homeowner, an older gentleman named Robert Shaw, asked me a question. "Say, aren't you the plumber who had that trouble with the HOA president a while back?" "That was me," I said, wondering where this was going. "I thought so. I read about it in the newspaper. Good for you standing up like that. Too many people in HOA positions think they are little dictators." "I just wanted to be treated fairly," I said. "Well, you inspired me," Robert said. "I'm on my HOA board in Mesa, and we had a situation last year where one of the board members was abusing her authority. After reading about your case, I spoke up and got the rest of the board to vote her out. The whole community is better for it." I felt a surge of satisfaction. Maybe Marcus had been right at that barbecue. By standing up for myself, I had inadvertently helped others find the courage to stand up too. "I'm glad I could help," I said, "even indirectly." "You did more than help. You showed people that you don't have to just accept abuse from petty tyrants. You can fight back with documentation and facts and win." I packed up my tools and drove back to Scottsdale, thinking about Robert's words. The whole experience with Brenda had been exhausting and infuriating, but maybe some good had come from it after all. Maybe other people had learned from my example. Maybe other HOA bullies had thought twice before targeting someone, knowing that their victims might fight back. That evening, I got home to find Beatrice working on a design project in her home office. I kissed the top of her head. "How was your day?" she asked. "Good. Replaced a water heater in Mesa. The homeowner told me I inspired him to stand up to a bully on his HOA board." Beatrice swiveled her chair to face me, smiling. "Really? That's amazing." It made me think. Maybe the whole thing with Brenda, as awful as it was, ended up mattering. Like, maybe it helped more people than just us. "I think it did," Beatrice said. "I've had neighbors tell me they feel more comfortable speaking up at HOA meetings now because they saw that you could challenge the board and win. That's a real legacy." "Legacy might be too strong a word," I said, laughing. "I don't think so. You changed the culture of our HOA. That's no small thing." Maybe she was right. I didn't think of myself as any kind of hero or activist. I had just been a guy defending his home and reputation. But if that had inspired other people to stand up for themselves, then I was proud of that. The weeks and months continued to pass peacefully. My business grew. The kids thrived in school. Beatrice's design work took off, and she started getting clients all over the Phoenix area. The HOA functioned smoothly under Linda's leadership, and there were no more dramatic meetings. 3 years after the ordeal with Brenda ended, I was invited to speak at a community organizing workshop in Phoenix. The organizers had heard about my experience and wanted me to share lessons about standing up to abusive authority in HOA settings. I almost declined. I wasn't a public speaker, and I didn't want to relive the whole experience. But Beatrice encouraged me to do it. "You have valuable experience to share," she said. "People need to hear that they can defend themselves and win." So I agreed. The workshop was held at a community college in Phoenix on a Saturday morning. About 50 people attended, all dealing with various HOA disputes. I stood at the front of the room and told my story. The false accusations, the retaliatory fines, the frivolous lawsuit, the false complaint to the licensing board, and finally the discovery that Brenda had sabotaged her own plumbing. I explained how I had documented everything, stayed calm, presented facts, and ultimately prevailed. When I finished, hands shot up all over the room. People wanted to know specific strategies for documenting violations, how to challenge board decisions, what legal resources were available. I answered as best I could, drawing on everything I had learned. After the workshop, several people came up to thank me personally. One woman, near tears, said I had given her hope that she could fight back against the board president who was making her life miserable. Driving home, I felt something I hadn't expected: closure. Talking about the experience publicly, helping other people navigate similar situations, had given the whole ordeal a sense of purpose. It wasn't just a nightmare I had endured. It was a lesson I could share, a way to help others. When I got home, Beatrice was in the kitchen making lunch. "How did it go?" "Really well, actually. I think I helped some people." "Of course you did." She kissed me. "I'm proud of you." That night, after the kids were in bed, Beatrice and I sat on the back patio again, looking at the stars. Arizona had some of the clearest night skies in the country, and I never got tired of looking at them. "Do you ever wonder what happened to Brenda?" Beatrice asked. "Not really," I said. "I hope she got help and figured her life out, but I don't think about her much anymore." I heard from Linda that she's still in Tucson. Apparently she joined an HOA board down there. I groaned. God help those people. Maybe she learned from what happened. Maybe she's different now. "Maybe," I said, though I doubted it. People like Brenda rarely changed. But that wasn't my problem anymore. We sat in comfortable silence, enjoying the cool evening air. The desert was beautiful at night, peaceful and vast. Whatever storms I had weathered, they were over now. Life was good, and I was grateful for every bit of it. Years passed. The kids grew up. My business continued to thrive. Beatrice's design firm became one of the most respected in the Phoenix area. We made friends, traveled, enjoyed life. The whole thing with Brenda Whitmore became a story we occasionally told at parties, usually to warn people about HOA power trips, but it didn't dominate our thoughts anymore. The Sunset Ridge HOA remained well-run and reasonable. Linda served as president for 5 years before stepping down, and the next president, a retired teacher named Samuel Wright, was just as fair and competent. The community thrived, and me. I kept doing what I did best: quality plumbing work, excellent customer service, and standing up for myself when necessary. I never had another client like Brenda, though I had a few difficult ones here and there. But I knew how to handle them now. Document everything, stay professional, present facts, and never let anyone bully you. The experience had taught me valuable lessons, not just about dealing with HOA disputes, but about life in general. Stand up for yourself. Document everything. Stay calm and professional. Let the facts speak for themselves. Don't let anyone abuse their authority to hurt you. And most importantly, never, ever let a Karen run an HOA without oversight. Looking back now, from the comfortable distance of years, I could see the whole experience as what it really was: a test. A test of character, resilience, and integrity, and I had passed. Not because I was smarter or tougher than anyone else, but because I refused to be bullied, and I was willing to put in the work to defend myself. That's all it takes, really. Refusing to be a victim, doing the work, and standing your ground. The rest takes care of itself. And now, all these years later, sitting on my patio in Scottsdale with my family healthy and happy, my business successful, and my reputation intact, I could honestly say I was grateful for the whole experience. Not because it was fun. It wasn't. It was stressful and exhausting and infuriating. But because it taught me who I was and what I was capable of. It showed me that I could face down a bully, navigate a legal system, and come out the other side stronger. That knowledge, that confidence, was worth everything I went through, and if I had to do it all over again, I would. Because some things are worth fighting for: your home, your reputation, your integrity, your peace of mind. And I would never, ever let anyone take those things from me without a fight. The story of Fletcher Emerson versus Brenda Whitmore, HOA president from hell, ended exactly as it should have, with justice served, lessons learned, and life moving forward. And really, what more could anyone ask for than that?